Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the latest issue of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Spearhead magazine. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, obviously give the video a thumbs up. Why not hit that subscribe button while you're down there? And of course, drop a comment down below. Now, if you leave a comment, obviously one, goes a massive way to helping out the channel, and two, it does really bring that community vibe to the channel. I really love hearing back from you, whether you're just stopping by to say hello, whether you're stopping by to say which colour scheme you're going for on any of the factions within this magazine's run. If there were factions you would have preferred to have seen, I love hearing about that as well. And even if you've got a little bit of a tidbit of lore that, you know, not a lot of people know about, it's super cool, super interesting, and I love to hear it. So why not drop a comment down below? Anywho, rambling over. This week we are on issue number 14 of good old Spearhead magazine. It is, yeah, it's a paint issue. There's no skirting around it, is there? So we have two pots of paint. Firstly, we have Calgar Blue, a nice light shade of blue utilised mostly for edge highlights of things like the blue pauldrons of Stormcast Eternals. If you've gone for the Hammers of Sigmar colour scheme, you may use it on Seraphon and a few other places here and there, and yeah. But yeah, it's a decent shade, I'm not going to lie. I don't use a lot of it though, so yeah, I could take it or leave that one. The other paint we get is another shade paint. Now, it's a bit of a mystery as to why they have given us a 12mm pot of Drakenhof Nightshade when on average they're 18mm. So if you want to know the size difference, this is our pot of Agrax Earthshade. There's a little bit of a height difference. Now, if you want to go even one further, this is what we used to get when we used to get proper pot shades of shade paints. So we've got 12mm, 18mm and 24mm. Now, these pots are sold for the same price as these pots were. So you've definitely got a bit of shrinkflation going on there. If I'm not 100% sure if you can actually buy these most of the time, but if you can, then that's really frustrating because that's even more shrinkflation than average. So that'll be annoying because those pots are definitely going to be sold for the same as the other pots. So it's just weirdly the Warhammer website doesn't mention what pot size you get if you order shade paints from them, but you can find out the pot size on websites like Hobby Workshop and places like that. So, you know, there's a little bit of that to bear in mind. So if you are buying shade paints, go into a shop and make sure you're picking up the right size pot that you want and not spending nearly £5 on a pot that size, because that's ridiculous when a regular, you know, Calgar Blue is like £3. So, you know, why would you pay for more for something that's actually thinned down essentially? Seems a bit weird. But if you're feeling the pinch with the expensive hobby that is Warhammer and you want some cheaper paints, obviously places like Wayland Games, Element Games, Hobby Workshop and places like that sell paints cheaper at a discounted rate compared to everywhere else. There are affiliate links for Wayland Games and Element Games in the description down below if you need to top up your hobby supplies and get things a bit cheaper. They also sell other paint ranges, whether it's the good old Two Thin Coats Duncan Roads paint range, or if you want, I don't know, maybe some Pro Acryl or anything like that, or even, you know, some Metal Academy, Vallejo, Green Stuff World, Army Painter, the lot, you name it, they generally sell it. So it's definitely worth having a look around and shopping for the correct shade of paint that you want to get your hands on and all that good stuff. Talking about slightly cheaper paints as well, if you want to obviously get your hands on cheaper paints and everywhere like that, try your third-party stores. So whether it's I mean, places like me, I've got a toy shop nearby that sells Warhammer stuff. I also have a shop called Boys, which is kind of like a discount Wilco type of shop, and they sell Colourforge spray paints, they sell some Citadel paints, they sell Milliput and a load of other bits and pieces for modelling and stuff like that. So it's worth checking out those places as well in case you can get cheaper. So why not? Anywho, paint ramble over, as per usual with a paint issue. We end up rambling about paint. Going forward, obviously, we actually have some lore in this week's issue. So we have information about the realm of life, Ghyran. Ghyran is a realm of blooming life and endless renewal. Amid its floating isles are all living things grow and swell at a prodigious rate. This is no tranquil glade. Ghyran teems with choking jungles, forests of towering trees, and countless creatures who dwell in their shadow. Ghyran may be a place of life, but for many, it is an early grave. In Ghyran, the forests and jungles stretch to the horizon and beyond, with every corner of the realm, from its vast expanses to its floating isles, covered in verdant life. Here, growth and renewal are constant. For the people of Ghyran, this presents unique challenges and dangers. Permanent settlement in the realm means constant labour, as questing vines and roots drag structures into the churning soil. Swarms of huge insects flit beneath sky-swallowing canopies, while vigilant Sylvaneth bring death to any who try to despoil the realm. Ghyran has long been coveted by the plague god Nurgle, who seeks to subvert its cycles of life to his own ends. So, you get a little bit more information about Ghyran as well, in the fact that the realm stone of Ghyran is the valuable cycle stone. It bears a portion of Ghyran's magical power and thus can be used to produce healing salves of incredible potency or even arcane fertilizer. However, used incorrectly, it can cause the unwary to grow impossibly huge. So, you probably don't want to feed it to your animals too much because, they might get a bit big and a bit monstrous and, all that type of good stuff. Also, obviously, the Coil of Life, so this magical symbol for Ghyran is called the Coil of Life, a rune representing renewal and cycles. It is common to see the Coil of Life on tribal tattoos or on the towering waystones that dot the realm. So if you ever wanted to, build yourself some terrain, if you include that pattern on there, could be pretty cool. So, make it quite interesting having that unique look to the realm, to your kind of terrain, have them unique runes and everything like that. Could be good fun. Anywho, enough mumbling on about. We get a bit of a map as well for Ghyran. So obviously we only get a portion of Ghyran as well. So we have Fyria, Akuya, Yiska, Humidia, Neos, and places like that, and Verdia. You also get some very specific locations, including Hammerhal Ghyra, and a few of the areas around there. There are also certain realm gates, including the Dreamlost Realm Gate, and places like that. So we have a load of little bit of information as well. Ghyra is a very, very interesting place to kind of have information about as well. So there are some really, really cool bits and pieces to it, whether it's Greywater Fastness, which is a very industrial place that's constantly fighting off the growing vegetation and places like that, and you have some really cool stories to do with that as well. And Hammerhal Ghyra obviously utilises the realm gate and the lava flowing from actually through that realm gate to help burn away vegetation around the outskirts of a city and all that type of stuff, which is really, really quite cool and quite interesting. So good fun there. So really, really interesting locations within there. You get a little bit more information about certain places as well, including Hammerhal Ghyra, Greywater Fastness, and the Living City. We also get a little bit more as well about the Stempest Straits, so which is a bit of a mouthful to. I think that's actually a massive typo as well, because it's meant to be the Tempest Straits. So, lightning and ruin. Some of the fiercest fighting in the Tempest Straits is between the Stormcast Eternals and the Skaven. Both claim Akshi as their own and both have totally incompatible goals. While the Stormcast Eternals wish to push back the befoulment and secure the realm for Sigmar's people, the Skaven only want to despoil and corrupt. The Skaven and the forces of Sigmar have always been at war. The Skaven are creatures of pure ruin, dedicated at the cost of all else to their own self-advancement and the destruction of all. For a time, Sigmar's fledgling empire in Akshi stood as a testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and unity of the people of the realms. The emergence of the Skaven in the magical calamity known as the Vermin Doom and the coming of the tainted Great Nor saw this ingenuity, resilience, and unity replaced with despair. Now in Akshi's Skaven-tainted frontier, constant war rages. The Tempest Straits represent a vital theatre of war. The Stormcast Eternals stand vigilant where the Tempest Straits border Skaven territory proper, and they range through there. So pretty cool stuff, and you get a little bit more information about that kind of area of Akshi, and obviously the Vermin Doom brought a lot of Skaven blight into the mortal realms as well, so it actually completely kind of changed the maps a little bit as well, which is really quite unique and quite interesting. And only the Vermin could do that because they have their tendency to have gnaw holes that can burrow between realms and all that type of good stuff. So very interesting, pretty cool, and super good. And we get a nice little photo as well just down here. So good stuff there. We also get our collect page for our Claw Lord, which we got last week. So I don't know why they're putting this page in this issue when they should have put it in last week's issue, because I don't know. I just don't know anymore, because they like to do things like that. It's like they could have put lore in the last couple of the week's issues as they weren't putting this, but no, they don't. They just bung it in this one because, I don't know, to somebody somewhere it probably makes sense, but not to me. Anyway, moving on past the War Scroll, we have our paint update. So if you are painting your minis and following the guide, you're going to use Calgar Blue on the wings of the Prosecutors. You're going to utilise it for the blue flame area on the axe of our Lord Vigilant, and even the fire on the stave and staff of the Lord Veritant, and even the blue flames on the Lord Veritant's sword. Now, obviously, you can do the Lord Veritant with orange flames and red flames and everything like that if you wanted to. You could do it with green flames, using things like Hex Wraith flame and stuff like that if you wanted to, or one of the contrast paints that you can get your hands on. If you want to speed up your painting of things like the wings, contrast paint works slightly better than using Calgar Blue and the shades, but entirely up to you. But, it's one way of doing things. But otherwise, it doesn't do too badly. It does exactly what you need it to do. You are going to be utilising the Calgar Blue for edge highlights at some point. They've just decided not to tell us in this issue. Don't know why, but they will tell us at some point in the near future. Unless they maybe they might be giving us Macragge Blue as well, maybe. I don't know. I can't even think anymore. But they probably will. Anywho, moving on from there, we get a little bit more information to do with our basic rules. So strike first and strike last. So obviously, recapping over what we've gone over before, including core abilities, which you can find on all your war scrolls and places like that, and obviously remembering your phases as well. Going over and utilising all your ward save, obviously having that little flowchart works very, very well and kind of helps you build up how you go about doing everything, and jobs are good. And carrying on though with giving us the basics for strike first and strike last, can give own over those abilities. Some units have them, some units don't. Not every unit will have strike first, not every unit will have strike last. They are two special rules that can be utilised, and it can be changed in order as well. So you get to utilise a lot of that. So for instance, you can have your unit with strike first. If you're really clever with it, you can utilise a bit of that and then strike last straight afterwards if you're circling your opponent. But yeah, really good stuff. It's quite good fun, and obviously you're going to utilise all these abilities much later on and go through all of the different traits and everything like that as and when time allows. Moving on from there, we have another basic battle to go through. So we have our Lord Veritant, Lord Vigilant, and 5 Liberators going up against the Claw Lord and 20 Clan Rats. So, as per usual, Stormcast Eternals are outnumbered quite heavily as well. So there are 20 Clan Rats to 5 Liberators, so that's 4 rats to every 1 Liberator. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And you get a little bit more information about how the Lord Vigilant has the Quicksilver Draft enhancement as well, that once per battle during any combat phase, this gives the Lord Vigilant the Strike First ability. So so he's a little bit quicker and draw and everything like that. And obviously play through all your turns, have a bit of good fun with that one, and you get to really enjoy yourself. Now, moving on, we have a nice different image here, don't we? So, gives us a hint of what is to come. So, moving on from all of that, issue 15 is our, part 1 of 2 of our 10 Saurus Warriors. So we'll get a sprue for these guys. The bases and second sprue will come with issue 16. We're also going to get a dry brush as well. So the dry brush is very handy to utilise, especially over things like the bodies of the Saurus Warriors and so on. So it'd be really good fun. And I'm not going to lie, Seraphon are really cool. The lizard men, they're really enjoyable. I must admit, I have the Warcry set, which has been sat sealed for 3 years since I bought that, I think, or something, maybe even a little bit longer than that. But it's really cool. I really like Saurus Warriors. I've got a Carnosaur, which I bought ages ago, which is the one we get with this magazine because they've not changed the design of it. Skinks are pretty cool. They're really good fun. There's loads of really cool units for the Seraphon to be getting on with. So yeah, we have some really cool times ahead of us. That being said, as soon as I get a full update as to what the issue layout's going to be, I will go through that with you guys. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye-bye now.